Welcome to F1 News Channel. Global Formula Apex Formula 1 just cancelled 2 races, lost nearly $90 million, and left an entire month of the season completely empty. And now, the FIA is preparing a move that could change everything. They're not replacing those races. They're trying to bring one back at the most critical moment possible, Saudi Arabia. A Grand Prix cancelled because of a real conflict now being pushed for a shock return in December. But here's what makes this unbelievable. This isn't just a calendar update. This could extend the season to the latest Finnish Formula 1 history, add a brand new race when the championship is already on the edge, and completely change who wins the title. Because if this decision goes through, this won't just be a comeback. It will be a last-second move that could decide everything. Because what the FIA is doing right now isn't just reacting. It's calculating carefully, precisely. And the more you look at it, the clearer the plan becomes. This all started with a crisis, a real one. Missiles, closed airspace, 2 Grand Prix are gone in a matter of days. Bahrain cancelled. Saudi Arabia cancelled. And just like that, the calendar dropped from 24 races to 22. But here's the detail most people missed. When the announcement was made, there was no replacement, no backup race, nothing. Just a massive gap right in the middle of the season.
If the data coming out of FIA is accurate, then Ferrari is no longer just chasing.
Real problem begins.
They're getting ready to attack.
Because Formula 1 doesn't just run on racing.
It all starts with a decision that didn't make much sense on the surface,
every race builds
holding
hype.
back their major upgrade
Every weekend
and waiting
keeps fans engaged, sponsors visible, money flowing, and when that music stops, everything slows down, interest drops, visibility disappears. And that's something the sport cannot afford, especially now. Because Saudi Arabia isn't just another race. It's one of the most valuable events on the entire calendar. Over $65 million tied to a single weekend.
Has solid aerodynamic performance,
that's leverage,
and a much
global
more
presence,
predictable
political
balance.
positioning.
This allows
So
both
when that
drivers
race
to maintain race pace
the objective
and manage
changed
tyres
instantly.
effectively.
Not if it
The
comes
only
back,
clear
but how
weakness
to bring
remains
it back
engine
without breaking
performance.
everything else. And that's where the FIA strategy starts to take shape. Because instead of forcing a replacement in the middle of the season, they looked at something much more powerful, the ending. Because changing the middle adjusts the flow, but changing the end changes music everything. And that's why December is the target. Not earlier, not safer, but later, at the exact moment where the championship is decided. Music, because that's where one extra race has maximum impact,
that
maximum
tells us
attention,
that when everything is operating
value.
within the right
but
window,
here's the problem.
McLaren can insert
This plan
itself
only works
into the
if
fight
everything
at the
aligns
front.
perfectly.
But as soon
Security
as
must
conditions
improve.
shifted, the limit
Airspace must
became
reopen,
clear.
governments must agree,
Mercedes
and
still
Abu
had a
Dhabi
level of
must
performance
accept moving its race. One condition fails and the entire plan collapses, which means right now, Formula 1 is not in control. It's waiting, watching, calculating for the moment when this becomes possible. And if that moment arrives, the season won't just continue. It will be transformed at the very end. And this is where the situation becomes something much bigger than just a schedule change. Because once you decide to move a race to December, you're not just adding an event. You're rewriting the final act of the championship. Now think about how a Formula 1 season is built. Every team plans months ahead. Engine usage is calculated down to the last race. Component life cycles are fixed. Strategies are designed around a known ending. But the moment you insert one more race, all of that breaks. Because now, nothing is aligned anymore. Engines that were supposed to last might not survive. Jarred gearboxes pushed beyond their limit. Drivers, already exhausted, forced to go again. And that's where the real danger begins. Because this doesn't just add excitement. It adds stress, mechanical, physical, mental, at the worst possible moment of the season. But here's where it gets even more intense. Not every team is affected the same way. Some teams manage long seasons better. They build reliability, consistency. Others rely on peak performance, short bursts, perfect execution. And when you extend the season like this, you reward survival over speed, which means the fastest car might not win anymore. Now imagine Following a brutal Japanese Grand Prix, 2 drivers where the new separated power by units almost were pushed nothing. to their limit. One of them has been found managing wanting the season perfectly. The sport's protecting dominant the force car, has avoiding sounded risks, an alarm, building a safe lead. Max Verstappen isn't just
suddenly,
complaining one about a more bad race weekend. appears. Now that strategy is useless. Now they have to push again, take risks again, expose themselves again. And, on the other side, the driver chasing music gets exactly what they needed. Another chance, another opportunity to flip everything. And that's why this move is so powerful. Because it doesn't just change the number of races. It changes the nature of the fight, from control to chaos. But here's the part most people still don't see. This decision is not just about competition, it's about message. Because if the FIA confirms this change, they are proving something very clear, that the calendar is flexible, that the structure can move, that even the final race of the season is not guaranteed. And once that idea becomes real, it changes how Formula One operates forever. Because from that moment on, every team knows nothing is fixed, nothing is final, everything can still change. And that leads to one final question, the one that defines this entire situation. If the FIA is willing to change the ending of the season, what else are they willing to change next? And this is where everything reaches its final and most revealing point. Because if the FIA actually goes through with this, if Saudi Arabia returns in December, then Formula One has just changed one of its oldest rules without ever saying it out loud, that the calendar is not music fixed, it's adjustable. Now think about what that means going forward. Every season you watch, every championship battle, every moment where you think this is the final stretch might not actually be final. Because now, there's proof. Proof that races can disappear. And more importantly, proof that they can come back when it matters most. And that changes how teams think, because from this moment on, you don't just plan for the races you see. You plan for the races that could appear unexpectedly at the worst possible time. Now imagine being inside a team right now. Engineers recalculating reliability. Strategists preparing for scenarios that don't officially exist. Drivers knowing that the season might not end where they thought it would. The music, that pressure is different. Because you can't fully control it. You can't fully music predict it. And in Formula One, that's where mistakes happen. But here's the final twist. Because while all of this feels chaotic, Jad, for Formula One itself, it's the opposite. This is control, total control. Because by keeping the option open, by delaying the final decision, by holding that extra race as a possibility, they create something incredibly powerful, together a complete and controlled weekend. And uncertainty keeps everyone watching. They had a clear understanding of what the car needed. Everyone is waiting for the decision, consistently waiting to see if the season changes all the way through to race day. And that's what makes this moment so important. Didn't just maintain, because it shows that Formula One is no longer just a sport with a fixed path. It's a system that can adapt in real time, that can reshape itself depending on what happens in the world around it. And if Saudi Arabia is confirmed, then this season won't just be remembered for who won the title. It will be remembered for something much bigger. The moment Formula One proved that even the ending is something it can still control. And this is where the story goes even deeper into something most people never think about. Because what we're seeing right now is not just a change. It's a new way of operating. Because for decades, Formula One followed a simple rule. You announce the calendar, you lock it in and you race it. But now that rule is gone, quietly, without a headline, without an official statement. It just music changed, because in this season alone we've already seen races disappear. We've seen an entire month go silent. And now, we're watching a race potentially come back at the very end. That's not normal. That's evolution.
Especially in terms of
and
downforce,
that evolution creates
which
something
has been
very
dangerous.
Limitation. Not for the sport,
so the question
but
now
for the teams trying to control it.
Will Miami turn McLaren
because
from
now,
a team that's
the biggest variable is not performance,
can actually
it's timing,
win.
Decisions, moments that happen outside the track. Now imagine this scenario. A team builds a championship-winning car. Perfect balance, perfect reliability. Everything calculated for 22 races. And then suddenly, there are 23. Now that perfect plan is no longer music perfect. Now it's exposed. Because it was never designed for that extra stress, that extra race, that extra moment of pressure. And that's how championships can be lost without a single mistake on track. But here's where it becomes even more powerful. Because this doesn't just affect one season. It sets a precedent, a new standard. From now on, every calendar announcement comes with doubt. Every final race might not actually be final. And every team has to be ready for something unexpected. And that's the real shift happening here. Formula One is becoming less predictable, more reactive, more dynamic. And that makes it more intense than ever. Because now, you're not just watching a championship unfold. You're watching a system that can change the rules of its own timeline at any moment. And that leads to the final realization, the one that connects everything. This was never just about Saudi Arabia. It was about proving something, that Formula One doesn't just follow a schedule. It controls it. It reshapes it. It adapts it when it needs to. And if this race returns, then this season won't just be remembered for the battles on track. It will be remembered for something much bigger. The moment Formula One showed that even time itself is something it can still bend. And this is where everything comes full circle, because after all the leaks, the negotiations, the uncertainty, one final truth becomes impossible to ignore. This was never just a reaction to a crisis. It was a demonstration of power, control, music, and flexibility at the highest level of motorsport. Because think about what just happened. A war cancels 2 races. An entire region becomes unavailable. The calendar breaks. And instead of accepting that reality, Formula One starts building a new one. Quietly, strategically, step by step, not asking if it should return, but preparing for the moment it can. And that changes everything because now the sport has shown its hand. It has shown that nothing is truly fixed. Not the calendar, not the structure, not even the ending of a championship. Everything can be adjusted if the conditions are right. And that's the final layer most people miss. Because while fancy races, while drivers see competition, Formula One sees something else. A system. One that can adapt. One that can evolve. One that can rewrite itself when necessary. And that's exactly what this Saudi Arabia situation represents. Not just a race coming back, but a new reality where the sport is constantly in motion. Always ready to change. Always ready to respond. Always ready to push forward no matter what happens around it.
New regulations.
So when the final races of the season arrive,
it's about
when the
execution
championship is on the edge,
and that's where it
when
gets
everything
interesting.
feels decided, remember
Mercedes
this.
is glowing.
It
An
might not
engine
be.
secret.
Because if there is one thing this story has proven, it's that in Formula One, the biggest change is the one
McLaren is
you
closer
never see coming.
than it first appeared.
And if Saudi
but
Arabia
still not
returns
close enough to
then
truly
the final
compete
moment
at
of
the
the
very
season
front
won't just be
On
about
paper,
who wins.
a P2 finish
It
looks
will
like
be
a
about
big
how the sport
breakthrough.
itself chose
But the
to
real
finish the
story
story.
lies